Leon, Guanajuato, had another quiet night until December 10th, 2019, when everything changed. Dulce Ivana was outside, going about her normal day. There were many hopes and dreams for her in the years to come. But something very bad happened that night. She wasn't by herself. She was with a person she knew and had faith in. On the street, people saw them talking. Everything looked fine. There was no fight or argument. Dulce was never seen alive again after that, though. What did that night really happen, and why? As the truth slowly came out, shocking facts came to light. There was more at stake than just one crime. There was a system that fails victims a lot, and a society that doesn't agree on what justice really means. Dulce Ivana was born in Leon, Mexico, on November 2nd, 2003. She grew up in a normal middle-class home with her parents and sister, Anahi. Not much is known about her early life. The little girl was always happy, and her family loved her very much because she was so nice and fun. In 2019, when she was 16, Dulce Ivana was a lively and outgoing teen who was liked by her friends and well-liked at school. There were big goals for her future. Her first objective was to finish school and go to college to start a successful job. She was only a few years away from making her dreams come true when something terrible happened that changed her life forever. Dulce got up early on December 10th, 2019, took a shower, and got ready for the day. She studied in her room for a while before going downstairs to eat breakfast with her sister Anahi, since their parents were already at work. After setting the table around 10 a.m., she said goodbye to her sister with love and left the house with a clear goal in mind: to sign up for high school, which was an important step toward her college goals. Her folks were getting more worried as the day went on because she wasn't coming home for another few hours. Calls and messages were not returned, and when family and friends tried to help but were unable to, their worry grew. Dulce had never been this absent before, and she usually had her phone with her at all times. Unfortunately, they had to wait a long time because the police needed 24 hours to legally report her missing. The next morning, December 11th, Anahi went to the prosecutor's office to report someone missing. The police didn't care and thought Dulce had probably run away with a boyfriend. Anahi claimed that wasn't possible and asked for an Amber Alert to be sent out right away. The Amber Alert is a nationwide emergency system that helps find missing children. It was created in the United States to remember Amber Hageman, a Texas girl who was kidnapped and killed in 1996. When looking for a lost child, the first few hours are very important. The longer it takes to find the child, the less likely it is that they will be safe. The Amber Alert tells people about the missing kid on the radio, TV, text messages, and social media, which makes it more likely that someone who may have seen them will hear about it. Anahi was told that the message would be sent after she asked several times. It made her feel better to know that more people were looking for her sister. But hours went by, and there was still no notice. The family did something about it because they were angry. They planned a search, made missing person flyers with Dulce's picture and information, and shared them on social media. They even got in touch with the media, which reported that she had gone missing. As the days went by, people all over the world learned about Dulce's story. Her face wasn't just known in Leon, it was known all over Mexico and even outside of Mexico. The sad disappearance of such a young and bright girl moved people all over the world, and many people joined the search for her. Soon, people came forward to say that they had seen Dulce between 10 and 11 a.m. on the day she disappeared. People saw her going around the Valle del Sol neighborhood. The fact that she wasn't by herself, a young guy about the same age as her, was what made her stand out. People who saw them both agreed that she seemed calm and at ease. She was talking animatedly with him and didn't show any signs of being scared or upset. The family frantically tried to find out who this young man was, but they couldn't do much without help from the police. What's even worse is that the Amber Alert that should have been sent out on December 11th wasn't until December 18th, a whole week later. The delay was fixed only after Anahi went to the prosecutor's office every day and demanded that something be done. The family had thought that the search would end, but it did not. A terrible find was made in an empty lot 10 days after Dulcie went missing. The authorities found a badly burned body that was very hard to identify. Scientists proved on December 21st that the remains belonged to Dulcie Ivana by testing them for DNA. The original investigation could not find the exact cause of death because the burns were so bad. An unknown guy went to the prosecutor's office and said that his own son had admitted to killing Dulcie. This was a big step forward in the case. Reports from different news outlets say that this guy either showed police where her body was or said that his son had tried to bury her there after the crime. 3 days after Dulcie's body was found, Antonio, the son of the person who reported him, was caught by police as the person they thought killed her. He wasn't talked about much, but it was proven that he was about the same age as Dulcie. He was well known among their common friends and had been trying to get together with her for years. He didn't give up, even though she turned him down several times. In private, he was angry that she kept turning him down. After Antonio was arrested, troubling information about how he had been acting came to light. He had more than 4,000 friends on social media, and most of them were young women about Dulcie's age. After some time, many of these women came forward with screenshots of talks they had with him. His texts often started out as nice compliments, but if they weren't replied to, he would get angry and insult them for not wanting to date him. It wasn't unusual for him to act this way. At least with his friends, he often talked about how bad his luck was, saying that every girl he liked never wrote back to him. They made it clear that they only saw him as a friend every time he tried to win them over. Many facts of the case were still unknown to the public at the time. There are still holes in the story that make it hard to figure out what happened between Dulcie and Antonio. On December 10th, 2019, 3 days after the suspect was arrested, but no one knew why, news sites started spreading rumors that he had admitted to the crime. That day, he reportedly met up with Dulcie to go with her as she registered for high school. Everything seemed fine until Antonio told her again that he loved her in the middle of their talk. Dulcie said no, just like she had before. Without being mean, she told him that she only saw him as a friend and that nothing could change that. That's when the police think Antonio chose to get back at them by kidnapping Dulcie and killing her. There was no way to do a good autopsy on her body because it was completely burned. People on the street saw the two of them talking quietly. There were no signs of a fight or that Antonio was trying to hold her down. The fact that no one saw the crime made it even more mysterious. Some news sites thought that Dulcie might have been beaten up before she died. Based on what they knew about Antonio, behavioral experts said this idea made sense, but the prosecutor's office never confirmed it. As the police continued their investigation in secret, social media turned into a major battlefield. Dulcie's Facebook page became a memorial for her death, with many posts from family, friends, and even people who had read about her case in the news or seen her parents' search efforts. A lot of people sent her heartfelt texts, wishing her peace and calling for justice, but not every word was nice. Some people made fun of Dulcie and her family on her profile to protect Antonio. Others even blamed her for what happened, saying she had shared sexy pictures, even though a quick look at her profile didn't show any such pictures. Other people were mean to her in comments on her pictures, making fun of her sorrow. In the same way, Antonio's profile was full of notes. There were posts from some of his friends that said things like, "Guilty or not, he's still one of my best friends," often with emojis. So many young people were on his side that it was crazy. Many people didn't even question whether Antonio was guilty. Instead, they defended him by blaming Dulcie, as if she were to blame for her own actions. At the same time, the media never stopped talking about Dulcie's family. Journalists kept asking the family for interviews, but they were too busy with sadness and paperwork to be able to make plans for Dulcie's burial. The cops told them that forensic exams were still going on, so her parents and sister had to go to the prosecutor's office every day to fill out the paperwork. The answer, though, was always the same. The body could not be set free yet. They waited for a painful week. Dulcie's body was finally laid to rest on December 28, 2019, 2 weeks after she had vanished. Friends and family met to remember her and mourn her death. They also raised their voices again to demand justice. Not long after her funeral, it was made public that Antonio had been legally charged with aggravated femicide by the judge. Even though this happened, the investigation stayed secret, and no public statements were made about how it was going. Even though he admitted to the crime, the case was still not over because he had to give his official statement in court. People were really looking forward to it. The case was talked about all over the country, and thousands of people were calling for justice online. Then, in 2020, while the case was still being looked into, the COVID-19 pandemic hit the whole world and stopped everything. Dulcie's hearing had to be put off because of the pandemic. There was another big change a few months later, when Dulcie's sister became famous. She was on a panel in August 2020 called Victims' Rights, where she talked about how the State Attorney General's office failed in many ways to handle her sister's case. She was angry that the delays and inefficient government work meant that she and her family didn't know what was going on with the case. The other day, on December 10th, Anahi went to the public prosecutor's office to ask for an Amber Alert and report her sister missing. Dulcie was expecting the police to move quickly because she was a minor and had just turned 16. Instead, they told her not to worry because Dulcie probably ran away with a boyfriend or went on vacation with friends before starting high school. They wouldn't do anything, even when Anahi complained and said Dulcie would never do something like that. 7 painful days passed before the police finally sent out an Amber Alert, but it was too late. They called Anahi 2 days later to tell her they had found her sister. They didn't tell her the truth at first. It's hard to describe how devastated Dulcie's family was when they heard that her body had been found. She didn't just think of the people who died as victims. Dulcie's family had also been hurt by the crime. It was too painful to bear, and I felt like I couldn't move on without justice. She also talked about how she had pushed for physical and mental help for her parents, but been told nothing by the authorities. The court case took a long time to finish. The pandemic made things more difficult and slowed down the court system, which was already moving slowly. But the fight for Dulcie went on anyway, even though there were delays. Her family and the thousands of people who supported her would not let her case go away. No matter how long it took, they knew that justice was the only thing that could bring them even a little peace. She even said that not having answers was making her so angry that when her doctor asked her what she would do if she saw the person who killed her sister, she answered right away, "I would kill him." Even though her presence on that discussion panel quickly sparked renewed media interest in Dulce Ivana's case, nothing major happened until March 2021. As things slowly got back to normal after the plague, Dulce's family got some very bad news. The office of the lawyer had started to say that Antonio probably wouldn't have to spend more than 5 years in jail. But why? One of the most talked about parts of the case was how Antonio's father helped police catch his son. Without him, Antonio might never have been caught because Dulce's body was in such bad shape that it was hard to do a forensic analysis. Why did this man have the guts to report his son to the police instead of protecting him? It was his bravery and moral belief that helped them get Dulce justice. People across the country, both in the news and on social media, praised him for his unusual choice. They said that he had done the right thing, unlike many families who would cover for their loved ones in this situation. Soon, though, he felt bad about what he had done and tried to get his son out of jail. The case was already moving slowly and was getting more complicated when Antonio's father did something that would slow it down even more. He told the cops that what he had said before wasn't true. At the same time, Dulce's family kept fighting, determined to get the harshest sentence possible for femicide, which is 60 years in jail. They told the media that Antonio's father was now defending his son out of pure parental instinct, but that the case files had strong proof that Antonio was guilty. In March 2021, there was a story going around in the news that Antonio had been freed and was no longer in preventive detention. In answer, Dulce's sister denied the claim in public and confirmed that Antonio was still being held. She did say, though, that on April 12th, there would be a very important meeting where they would try to get the harshest sentence possible. The last court case happened more than a year ago, and this meeting was supposed to be the first one that took place in person. One reason for the delays was that Antonio had not yet publicly admitted to committing the crime. This made the start date of the trial later than planned. The meeting in April was very important because it would decide if Antonio finally admitted to the charges and the trial would go ahead as a full legal process or a shorter one. Online threats were made against Dulce's family again while they were waiting for the hearing. But this time, Antonio's own father was the one who attacked, which was a surprise. It looked like he started posting on his own social media accounts and in groups that were meant to protect Antonio, spread accusations, and blame Dulce again. He said in public that she wasn't as innocent as people thought she was, and blamed her for what had happened. All Dulce's family wanted was a moment of peace, so they could get to the important April meeting and finally ask for justice. That time never came, though. The meeting was moved to May 24th for reasons that are still unknown. Around the time of the new date, Antonio pulled out another card. He fired his lawyers. Because of this, another delay was immediately caused. Dulce's family spoke out against the situation, saying that the court system had been tainted and that the trial should not be delayed over and over again for silly reasons. They thought Antonio was just trying to avoid being responsible. Next, the case was moved to June 10th, and the judge gave Antonio 3 days to find a new lawyer. The court would name a public attorney for him if he didn't do that. The date was kept this time. On that terrible June 10th, the judge agreed to shorten the hearing, which meant Antonio could not get more than 20 years in prison. As part of the process, it was also said that the final sentence would be given in about 15 days. When Dulcie's family talked to the reporters after the hearing, they said how upset they were. They told Antonio that the shortened process helped him because the case files called him an uncertain participant. If there had been a full trial, the sentence could have been much heavier. By choosing a shorter process and admitting his guilt, he was able to lower the chance of getting a harsh sentence. But it took longer than 15 days, nearly a month, to give the sentence. The final choice wasn't made public until March 10, 2022, 9 months after the meeting. Dulcie's family knew they wouldn't get the 60-year sentence, but they were still hoping for at least the full 20 years that the shorter hearing would allow. That wasn't the case, though. Antonio was given a 5-year jail sentence on March 10, 2022, for the aggravated murder of Dulce Ivana. As soon as the sentence was made public, Dulce's family pulled away from the media, seeking comfort with their loved ones and avoiding any further public involvement. But Anahi spoke out one last time before going into quiet. Her thoughts turned to how femicides didn't seem to shock Mexican society as much as they used to. She said that she thought these kinds of crimes had become accepted because more and more women were being killed every day and crime rates kept going up. She spoke out against the justice system, saying it was a shame that it often seemed more interested in protecting murderers than helping victims. It seemed like the real purpose of the legal system was to shorten the terms of criminals while making it impossible for victims to get justice. That's when she said a lot of people stopped being afraid to break the law because they knew the effects would be small. It looked like justice was on their side, which was a bad sign. And that's where we'll leave this case for now. If you found it compelling, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think really happened? Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep seeking